Hold on. Okay. It started recording already.
Right. Thank you, Vasna. Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to this insightful Zoom talk on the dynamic landscape of the property market in Singapore. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, like what our MCG mentioned earlier, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of GOPIO Singapore. GOPIO stands for Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, and it's a Singapore chapter now, accredited by the United Nations as a non-government organization. GOPIO is recognized as a secular, non-religious, and non-profit global organization. And GOPIO Singapore was actually inaugurated in 2002 and has been a registered society under the Registrar of Societies since 2001. Our mission of GOPIO Singapore is to bring people of Indian origin in Singapore and around the world together to promote their interests, professional, cultural, and social aspects, with a view to realizing their maximum potential to the service of global peace, prosperity, happiness, and compassion. Importantly, we provide a platform for networking and sharing up-to-date information that concerns the community. In the ever-evolving business landscape, staying ahead of the curve and fostering innovative strategies is essential for success. As part of GOPIO Singapore's objectives, we are committed to promoting knowledge sharing and networking. We have recently organized a series of engaging business conferences and talks locally as well as globally, partnering with our overseas GOPIO chapters. These talks brought together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts who shared their insights, experience, and best practices. Today's talk is no exception. We have brought a property expert to share insights into the changes in the policy on the property market in Singapore, and what you need to know when making decisions to buy or invest in properties. I hope many of you attending today's talk will benefit from the insights shared by our experienced speaker. And I would like to thank Mr. Raama for taking this time today and Mr. Gurudev Singh for actually introducing Mr. Raama to GOPIO Singapore. Mr. Raama, despite his busy schedule, has given us the time to talk today, and we really thank Mr. Raama. Without further delay, I would like to hand over back to our MC to introduce Mr. Raama. Back to you, Anuj.
Thank you, Mr. Chandram Mohan, for your welcome speech. Let me introduce our key executive officer, Mr. Raama Subramaniyan, for today's session. Mr. Raama Subramaniyan has been in the real estate industry since 2008. Prior to heading Singapore Realtors Incorporation, SRI, one of the top 5 agencies in Singapore, he was heading a startup real estate agency. As an ACTA certified trainer, assessor, and curriculum developer, Raama has mentored many salespersons over the years. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, kindly indicate in the chat box. After this session, there will be a Q&A session. I will collect all the questions from the chat box and present it here. Kindly wait for me to call you for Q&A. Please join with me in welcoming Mr. Raama Subramaniyan for the business talk on latest policies and property trends in Singapore. The Zoom platform is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuj, for the introduction. Thank you. And I also thank the organizing committee for inviting me, especially Gurudev for introducing me to you guys. Excited to share what I have prepared for today's talk. As I was preparing for this talk, I realized that this year, 2023, has actually been a very busy year for the policymakers. As I was going through what are the things that were happening, and I realized, wow, this year has been a very, very busy year for them. And before I start, I do see a lot of familiar faces. I'm happy to see them. Haven't seen them for a long time. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, without further ado, I would jump into the presentation. So today, our key points will address these following 5 events that took place, or rather 4 events, and the 5th one is more or less been happening in the last few years. Okay, so we'll be talking about buyer stamp duty increase, some revised HDB grants, and for the 6th time, we have additional buyer stamp duty that came about. And of course, you all would have heard the 2.8 billion money laundering probe and how it has affected the industry as well. And not forgetting National Day Rally, because there were some things that our Prime Minister mentioned that would, in my opinion, later we can discuss that, would also affect the local residential market. Okay, And eventually you'll end up with the interest performance and how it affects the property market overall. All right. Okay, let's go into the buyer stamp duty rate. So when we talk about buyer stamp duty, we are always mistakenly linking it to the additional buyer stamp duty, because for the ABSD, additional buyer stamp duty, there's been so many different rounds of increase. But for the buyer's stamp duty, which is the main portion, the stamp duty, it has increased actually twice. This is the second one. Previously, it was increased in 2018. When it originally started, it was the usual 3% minus $5,400. That's the stamp duty that everyone pays for any type of residential property. So in 2018, the government decided, okay, let me introduce anything above 1 million will be 4% from now on. And then in February 2023, they increased it again. To increase the buyer stamp duty, it takes a lot of planning for the government to do, because they are strictly trying to tell you, we need to cool the market. So now let me just show you the difference. Additional buyer stamp duty is different. Buyer stamp duty is different. Buyer stamp duty is a must, even if it is the first property that you're buying. Okay. So previously, like I said, it was only 3%. In 2018, it was increased to 4% for anything above 1 million. And now in February 2023,
I think we lost the connection. Just give few minutes, we'll be back.
is it okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
We can hear you.
So in February 2023, the government introduced even more stricter stamp duty rates. Okay, so what they did was they kept the 1 million thing. So anything that you purchase for 1 million is 3%, which is normal. Okay, and anything that's between 1 million to 1.5 million, for the next 500,000, that's after the 1 million, you have to pay 4%. And anything that's 1.5 million to 3 million, you have to pay 5%. And anything that's above 3 million, you have to pay 6%. Now you can see this is for the first property itself, not even the second property. When it's the second property, it's called the additional buyer stamp duty. So this is the normal stamp duty itself. And why do you think they did this? Okay, because ABSD, there's been many rounds, but BSD second time, because the government always tries to cool the market. But for whatever reason, our foundation, the people, they have the money, they still go into the market, they still end up buying and eventually keeping the price or pushing the price. In case
Mr. Rama, we lost the hearing.
it's back again. Yeah, I keep getting a pop-up of the audio being cut off. So
No problem.
So again, why do you think this PSD was introduced for the second time? Like I already mentioned before. 1 minute. Okay, the buyer's stamp duty, 1 minute guys, is both for residential and non-residential properties of higher value. So this time when they did the increase for the buyer's stamp duty, right, they wanted to go for the high value properties. That means they did not want to disturb those people who are within the 1 million or 1.5 million. They were going for the 1.5 million and above. These are the people they were targeting. Okay, so they didn't want that price range properties to go even further. Okay, and importantly, it also is expected to generate an income of almost 500 million, but that's for the government. All right, so end up this kind of policies will cough up the coffers actually. Like why and when did it came out is during the budget. Okay, then basically during budget, they are always trying to see how much more money we can add on to the government, right? So this is one of the things that they came up with. And also, they did a study with URA. Nearly 55% of all residential transactions were at least worth 1.5 million, and about 15% were at least 3 million. So these are the things that will be giving them the money, all right? And of course, 39.2% were valued between 1.5 to 3. So the important question that arose when this particular policy came up, right, is does it affect the commercial and industrial properties? Yes, it does. So this is a little bit of a summary here, okay, that shows you which property you need to pay GST and which properties you need to pay PSD, ABSD, and SST. Okay, let me just go through one by one. Of course, residential property, there's no GST involved, but for commercial, There may be, there may not be. If the seller is GST registered, yes, the buyer has to pay GST. And that's what they mean by GST over there. Okay, for buyer stamp duty, every property transaction has a buyer stamp duty. All right. ABSD. ABSD so far is only introduced to residential property because it keeps going upwards. Right. In future, we may end up seeing it for industrial property also. Of course, I'm not going to talk about industrial property today, but because of the fact that we are putting in a lot of policies for the residential sector, people are venturing into commercial and industrial, and eventually these prices will go up. And guess what? The government will come up with more policies and more cooling measures. Okay, SSD. What is SSD? SSD is seller stamp duty. Okay, seller stamp duty is when the government wants you to hold on to the property for a particular period of time. In the past, the earlier days, like in 2008-10, there were a lot of flipping. They call it flipping. They buy, they sell. They buy, they sell. Within a period of 1 year, 6 months, sometimes they don't even exercise. They start selling it. And all this activity will eventually push the price up. And that's what the government didn't want. That's why they introduced the SSD for the residential property. And as you can see from this chart, industrial property as well. Because you know why? For Singaporeans, every loophole they will exploit. When they know that this particular group of or type of property I can make money, they will go inside and they will make money and eventually bring the price up. So it is the government's duty to always take care of the interests of the market. And that's the reason why they come up with the seller stamp duty. So at the same time, the government also, during the budget, revised the HDB grant. So let's see what they did. Okay, to make the public housing more affordable, okay, okay, I think I'm back again. Okay, as you can see, the first thing they did in budget was to engage the buyer stamp duty. The second thing they did was actually to target the public housing. They wanted to make it more affordable and accessible for younger families who are buying the property for the first time. Okay, their first home basically. And the increase in CPF housing grants was also extended to first-time buyers. I think I'm having some issues with the audio here, but I think you can hear me right now, but let me just continue. All right, and the other thing was they wanted to give greater priority to BTO applications. I would just like to show you what are the grants that they extended out, okay? So let me show you this. Can you guys see my screen, the MND screen? Anyone can let me know?
Yeah, clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reverse HDB grant, yes.
So at the same time during budget, this is roughly, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I can show you what are the CPF grants they actually had before, which is 50,000, they revised it to 80. And for 5-room or larger, they increased it by another 10K. And for singles as well, they are encouraging singles to also buy. Okay, they increased their grant as well. So this is actually to help people to buy and or rather afford because the prices are going up, okay? So that they don't become upset. Okay, I'm back here. Okay, and then came April. So that's another 2 months time, right? They already introduced the buyer stamp duty. And it was actually a blow for a lot of people because it's a huge amount of money that's going into IRAS. And still the property market was not cooling down. So they had no choice but to introduce the additional buyer stamp duty, which is a weapon that they have. That means they have already used it 5 times before. This is the 6th time, right? So what did they do this time? And why did they do it? Okay, as what the chart already, slide already expresses, it wants to dampen the investment demand. But now you must understand here, who are they targeting? When they introduce this ABSD, who are they targeting? Are they targeting the locals? Are they targeting the first-time buyers? Are they targeting Singaporeans? Are they targeting PRs? Or are they targeting companies or foreigners? That is the golden question here. So that is what we are going to go through in our upcoming slides, okay? The other thing they did was they also want to significantly increase the housing supply. So by increasing the housing supply, as when they say increasing housing supply, it's public housing, okay? It's not private housing, okay? And this will ease the pressure on the housing and rental markets, okay? And then there was no change for the locals. Let's see the table, okay? This is the table that came out in 27th of April. Okay. So as you can see, for the Singaporeans' first property, right, there's no change. For the PR's first property, also no change. Previously, for Singaporeans who wanted to buy their second property, they had to pay 17% tax. They increased it by 3% to 20%. You know, there's a joke behind this. This 20% for the second property for every Singaporean, this was the additional buyer's stamp duty that was payable by foreigners when the first additional buyer's stamp duty came out. And we used to say, a foreigner, if he buys every 5 property he buys, 1 property is free for IRAS. That's the joke we used to say. And today, even Singaporeans have to pay 20%. So see how far the market has come and how many different levels of additional buyer's stamp duty have increased, and still our price is moving upwards. Okay. But this time round, if you notice, okay, for the PRs, they increased it by 5%. But look at the foreigners. They doubled it. They increased it by 30% to 60%. That's like every $1 million that you spend buying something, you are paying $600,000 of additional buyer's stamp duty to IRAS on top of the buyer's stamp duty. All right. So you have to understand this, a lot of money. So they are trying to deter the foreigners from coming into the market. And then we have to also ask ourselves, why are they doing it? Why just the foreigners? Why did they target the foreigners? There are reasons for it. Okay, why was this? Let's see. If you can see this chart, right, it shows you the first quarter of 22 all the way to the first quarter of 2023. The reason why it stopped at 2023 is because this policy came out in April. So it's the first quarter. Okay. If you notice, Singaporeans, okay, they form 78%. And when all these policies were introduced, at the end of the day, you can see it actually dropped to 72. But they were not the target. Look at the PRs. They actually increased. They went on to buy. They knew that if they don't buy, because then there's going to be more and more policies going to deter them more. Because for them, it wasn't a 3% increase, it was a 5% increase, right? So they went on to buy. But look at the foreigners. They were simply not bothered about any kind of cooling measure. The money just kept flowing in and they just kept buying. So from 3.1, it went all the way up to 7%. So these are some of the figures that we work with in order to find out why the government actually decides to implement this kind of policies. So there must always be a reason. So when people ask them, why is this happening? So when they see the 60%, they get very upset. Like, oh, I can't enter the market anymore. No, it's not that. They are not targeting the Singaporeans or the first-time buyers. And all this, the government releases on a very timely manner. Okay, because imagine in September this year, this is in April. In September this year is the presidential election. And we are also about to have our general election. So all these are put and planned and put in place very, very carefully. All right. So let's see. Let's go in deeper into this charts and see what we can find out. Okay. If you notice on the how much did foreigners buy? Okay, you look at the number of transactions. Okay, these are the number of transactions. For Singaporeans, as you can see, from 3,600 or 3,700, it dropped to 2,700. Okay. Over a period of 1 year. But look at the foreigners. From 145, just kept going up. Because the foreigners will come, when these group of people, although the numbers are small, when they start buying and the price goes up, it also affects the rest of us. So that is something that the government wanted to put a stop to. And no matter how much of tax they put on them, the money started coming in. Okay. So in terms of percentage as well, you can see here, foreigners, again, 7%. But one more chart, okay? This one, it tells you what did they buy. Did they buy new sale? Did they buy resale? Or they bought sub-sale? As you can see, the foreigners, okay, for the first quarter, they are more interested in buying new sale, okay? As you can see, the new sale forms a bulk of the percentage, all right? Very rare they buy resale, but a lot of new sale. So whenever there's a new launch, it clearly shows that foreigners are coming in to buy. You would have read a lot of articles in recent times where people come and buy 5-6 units, by bulk purchases and everything. So we will actually look at it later on because it also forms part of our one of our topics. So, well, we are already here. This is the topic that I wanted to talk about. Why? And maybe the government already knew what was happening. These guys, this 2.8 billion money laundering probe, this started way back in 2022, the very first investigation. It was a very small group of people. Nobody knew about it. They started the investigation. And eventually, after one whole year, they started uncovering a lot of things. And especially at the same time, the government is introducing all these policies to curb. And the government also knows that these people are buying. So when they increase, it's more money for them as well. I don't know whether they planned it that way, but it's just my opinion, right? Because as I said, when I decided to do this particular presentation, I saw the timeline. I was like, perfect, man. You know, these guys are doing this investigation, and at the same time, these guys are coming in with a lot of money. Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of tax being put on them. And of course, the eventual winner is IRAS. Okay. So let's see what happened. Okay. On 15th of August, okay, police announced its largest anti-money laundering operation, which involved 105 real estate properties and arrested 10 foreigners. Of course, by today, these numbers have gone up. It's like 152 plus already 13 or even more of them being arrested. And you know what? It doesn't stop there. There are still many more of these things, and slowly, one by one, they will be uncovering it. But importantly, how does it affect our industry? Okay. So as you can see, okay, these are the things that they confiscated from them, okay, of 2.8 billion worth of properties, 152 properties, what are the jewelries, watches, and all these things. So again, everybody asks, oh, why is this a problem for the real estate industry? Okay. So many years ago, the government introduced a policy. It's called the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Act. So as real estate salesperson, we had to know who our clients are, like know your clients kind of thing. So we had to go and figure out when someone comes and tells you, look, I want to buy a very high value property in Singapore. But we need to know who you are. So I need to find out, can you share your passport details with me, your name, your birthday, and all these things. So these are some of the information that you need to fill up in our customer particulars form. So when they don't give you this form, you are supposed to raise a report and continue doing the job. So in case where this is linked to any type of money laundering issues, you are safe. But if you do not raise the report and continue to service this client, and they find out like this, they catch these people, and there are agents who are being investigated as we speak. These guys will eventually be suspended. They will be fined because they did not raise the report. Okay. So one day, when this was very new, many years back, we asked the authority, hey, if you know the guy is into anti-money laundering or any terrorism kind of thing, how do you expect a person like us, we are just doing a job. We can't go and ask them, can you give me this, can you give me that? The fellow ask me, why are you asking me so many questions? Oh, we have this policy. We can't even tell them that, right? So we are afraid. So why are we doing this job? Why are you making us responsible for this? So for which the person who was doing the talk that day gave a very, very good analogy, which I'm going to share with you all. So he asked this person, so today you're going back home. At the lobby of your house, you see a suspicious bag. What do you do? So of course, there were a few answers. Someone said, I'll go and open the bag. It could be anything. It could be a bomb. It could be something there. Or someone left it there. But what would you do? So one of them answered, I would call the police and inform them. So that's all we want you to do. That's what the guy who was giving the talk said. All you need to do is just let us know by raising the report. You don't need to do anything else. Just continue with your work. So that was a very convincing answer for everyone, because as a citizen, as a neighborhood, you would definitely call the police, right? So same thing here. When you're doing a job, if you feel something is amiss, you just need to make the report. And after all this has been put in place, still this much of money managed to slip into the country. Okay. So who are the rest of the stakeholders? Okay. When you say property, you need money to buy the property. So money has to come into Singapore. So how does money come into Singapore? The first person who knows the money is coming to Singapore are the banks. So the banks actually got implicated in this probe quite a fair bit. So they are the first line of defense, followed by law firms which are acting for the clients. They need to figure out the same thing. They need to know their clients. Why is there so much of money coming into the account? So these are the things that they need to end. The final part of the jigsaw puzzle is us, the agents. If these two people fail and they come to us and then they are looking for houses at crazy prices and they can pay in full cash, we are the next form of defense, So we need to identify this red flag and raise this report. So having this three group of people all these years still didn't prevent these people from laundering this much of money. Okay, as you could have easily heard, these guys run illegal online gambling dens and some sort of scams. They ended up buying in Canning Hill Piers like rows and rows of houses, Park Nova, and many more bulk purchases. But these are signs. These are not normal, and these are foreigners. And because of these guys buying at these places, the per square foot of that particular property or that particular project increases, and that makes it difficult for the rest of them who want to buy to stay there. The price goes up, so they need to stop all this thing. And the funny thing is, I put the president challenge. Okay, the president challenge and the ComChess also receive funds from these people on the 23rd of August and 24th of August. Okay, as I was doing the research, I realized this, and guess what? Exactly 1 week later was the presidential election. Okay, so again, the government managed to get a lot of money from there as well. But again, these are money that would be put aside for investigation purposes. Okay, now let's go to what happened in August, the same year, same month. Okay, there was a National Day rally. There was a lot of announcement there, but I'm just going to pick on one important thing that happened. Okay, the National Day rally, Prime Minister actually announced a new classification of flats to better reflect the locational attributes of HDB, BTO flats. Okay, and potential home buyers can look forward to more affordable. You got to be very careful here. Huh? They say affordable BTO flats in attractive locations. I really love the way they choose, because they are, at the end of the day, salesmen too. They use really nice words. But then when you go deeper into it, you will understand they are actually, yes, they are affordable, but they come with a lot of requirements, a lot of things that you need to look out for, which we are going to see in the next few slides. Okay, so before that, let's see the classification. What's mature estates and what's non-mature estates? Okay, so we have a list over here. Of course, anything that's near town is mature estates. But they have included Ang Mo Kio, Bedok, which are one of the very first few HDB estates as mature estates as well. Okay, so to me, honestly, moving forward with whatever they have come up with in this particular policy, I don't think there would be any difference for the mature or non-mature anymore. Let me explain to you why. Okay, so this is one of the most confusing thing that they came up with. Even real estate agents have to, really go back to the class and relook at everything and study this whole thing, because there's just so much. Whoever the policymaker who did this, I don't know what they were thinking. Okay, basically the whole idea of coming up with this standard plus and prime BTO flats was to make sure the HDB prices don't go up too high. Like you've heard about all the $1 million flats, right? So when you see too many $1 million flats, it's not good, because the people become unhappy. When the people become unhappy, the government looks bad. And it's public housing, this is not private housing, right? So they had to do something. So what can they do? Because every time they build something in a very good location, say for example in town, let's just pick a place, Dawson Road, okay, or Pinnacle at Dustin. These are prime estates. And all these projects, they don't have this, they don't fall under this because this is new, right? So these guys, they were launched at like maybe $300,000, $400,000 or $500,000. Today they are transacting at 1.4 million. So people are unhappy. Hey, how come I have to pay so much? But that's not the only problem the government faced. If that is going at 1.4 million, imagine the private property in the same area. It has to move up. If it was transacting at 1.4, it can't transact at 1.4 anymore, because the HDB is transacting at 1.4. So naturally, the private property has to move up. Again, what does this do? Increase the price of the property. So the government has to always come up with various plans in order, how can I contain this increase, right? So they came up with this brilliant idea, which I don't think so. Let me explain why. The standard BTO flats, everything remains the same. That means there is a 5-year MOP period. MOP is minimum occupation period. As the name suggests, you have to occupy the flat for 5 years. You cannot lock one room, or you cannot rent it out. Okay, that's not allowed. You have to stay in the house for 5 years. If you don't stay in the house, the MOP does not start until you put yourself in the house. Then the clock starts ticking for 5 years. All right. And after the 5th year, or rather before the 5th year, you can stay in the house and rent out individual rooms, but you have to stay in the house. And after 5 years, you can rent out the whole flat. And there's no income ceiling for the resale buyers. So after 5 years, you can sell. No problem. This is the normal policy for a very long time. And guess what? Now they came up with plus. They call it choicier location. Choicier location. Okay. That means it's near transport nodes, town centers, and they give you more subsidies. That means on top of the standard subsidy, they give you more subsidy. All right. But look at the third column. They put in a tighter restriction. Okay. The income ceiling. Forget about the income ceiling. Okay. That's not important here. Look at the next line. Subsidy recovery upon resale. First of all, when can you resale or when can you resell? Look at the next line. It's a 10-year MOP. That means you have to be in that house, stay in the house for 10 years. 10 years is no joke. That means you can't sell in the first 5 years, And after 10th year, you can't rent out the whole flat either. You can only do room rentals and you have to stay there. So what's the point? It's not even an investment flat because we're so used to having a HDB flat that after 5 years, you can rent out and make money out of it. And now after 10 years, you can't even rent it out. So what does that mean? Either you stay there for life or you sell it. And who's going to buy it from you? Who's going to buy it from you? The guy who buys it from you, he has an MOP period as well, right? And how much is he going to buy it from you? And when you sell, you have to return the subsidy. You see, subsidy recovery upon resale. So you have to pay money to sell your house. That means when you make profit, you have to still pay them. It's like a levy, And look at the last one, prime. They give the most amount of subsidies. So most amount of subsidies, you have to give back more amount of recovery, right? So when it comes to recovery, you have to pay more. So to me, in the past, okay, the dream of a Singaporean, okay, young Singaporean, parents want you to get married early, okay, and then buy your first HDB flat. And faster stay there for 5 years. MOP, almost 99.9% of MOP flats in Singapore have made money. Make that money, upgrade to a condo or executive condo, and after 5 years, make money there and then go to the next level and buy yourself a private property or land property. That's the dream of every Singaporean or young Singaporean, or at least that's what their parents encourage them to do. But today, let me ask you, if a youngster were to come here and see this plan, I want to have this house. Like for example, Vivo City. Beside Vivo City, you would have seen this place, Reflections at Keppel Bay, this condo, the one that's curving up and down sideways. So beside this place, there is a very big plot of land, which is going to be HDB soon. That's an excellent location, waterfront, facing the sea. But it's going to be 10 years and it's going to be under prime. So youngsters would love to stay there. But guess what? If they're going to get married, and our marriage rate is also very low. Let's say they get married at 25. So until 35, they cannot move. So imagine at 35, they wait for another 5 years, they become 40, and then they want to move. They can't make money as well, as much as if they were on the normal BTO or flats that we are currently living in, So what happens here? They are stuck because now they are 40 years old. If they want to buy the next property, the loan tenure, that means the amount of years that they can qualify for a loan also decreases. So they end up paying more installments. So now, as real estate agents, we have to explain this to the people. So at this point in time, by coming out with this policy, the current resale new flats, like 5-year-old flats, 10-year-old flats, they become more desirable. The youngsters rather buy that. 5 years, they can just sell it off, make their money and move. And so what will happen when that happens? So by coming up with this policy, if everyone goes back to the resale market, no, I don't want to touch all this prime and plus. I will just stick to the standard and what's already available in the market. What do you think? What do you think, guys, would happen? What do you think? In mature or non-mature, it doesn't matter. This is what will happen. There'll be more $1 million flats. So to me personally, I feel this policy, I don't know who came up with this. We have to wait and see. Okay, it's only going to be implemented from next year onwards. We really have to wait and see. But well, as you have already seen, our government, when the price moves up, they will come up with more cooling measures, and more cooling measures. So to me, this particular policy was a boo-boo. So, but anyway, let's see what happens. All right, we have come to almost the last topic for today, which is the interest rates. Okay, I have a little a diagram, or rather, it shows about your HDB loan, which is at 2.6%, which we considered high. In 2007, our interest rate was under 1%, like 0.8 or 0.9, if I remember correctly. Okay, and 2.6 was like, whoa, very high. But you know what? At that point in time, our our country was not so knowledge savvy on property matters and interest rates. So a lot of people stuck to the HDB loan. Okay. But today, slowly, it has gone from 0.8 to 1 to 1.2 to 1.5 to 1.8 to 2, 2.2, and we are at 4 point something. And there are rates at 3.1 as we speak this month. I understand there's something at 3.1. But you can see those people who secured a HDB loan and did not change to a bank loan, they would have suffered. But they wouldn't know when this interest rate would go up, right? But historically speaking, Singapore has always enjoyed low interest rates as compared to many other countries. Okay. And as you can see, the government also introduced another thing. The down payment, or rather, you can loan up to 75% for private property or bank loan. For HDB, used to be 90, okay, and they dropped it to 80. Okay, so there are a lot of things that the government introduced again to deter people, right? So we usually follow the Fed rates, okay, and we are influenced by the global markets, but more so by the US. So if you notice from January 2022 to date, the percentage point has increased. If you see the third column over here, it has kept increasing. So because it's increasing, our financial institution, they would also increase. But they are trying to keep the increase as low as possible. All right. So this is where you have to be careful. I mean, those people who are tuned in, you have to go and check today what your interest rates are. And if you are already on a very low interest rate, say, for example, you secured something like 2 or 3 years ago, and you are on a tail end, okay, of your loan coming to maturity, you need to go and figure out, okay, my next renewal is going to be going up to about 3.2, 3.3%. So I need to go and do my homework. If you leave it, they will automatically push you to the highest, which is like a 4 point something. So these are some of the little homework that you need to do. Maybe you can talk to your own real estate agent or bankers and figure out how you can reprice with the same bank or refinance to another bank, all right, to get a lower interest rate. But I know for a fact there are some of them who are sitting on a 1.2, 1.3% loan, which is coming to an end this month or next, and they are in for a road shop because they are in monthly installments going to really increase quite a fair bit, all right? Okay, and this is how the Fed rates affect our interest rates. Okay, so as you can see from January 22, we were very close to zero, right? Like 1%, 1.1 and everything. So eventually it went up all the way to, you see, past the 4% at one point in the March this year, but eventually came down. I think it's about 3.2, 3.3 now. Okay, so what happens? What happens during this period? In the last 1 year, another thing happened. Apart from all these ABSDs, BSDs, and all these things, when the interest rate went up, naturally, the owner of the house ends up paying more for his monthly installment. So when it comes to renewal, who do you think the landlord would transfer the pain to? Obviously, he's going to transfer it to the tenant. And as agents, we were also part of it. We said, yes, the interest is high, this is a new part of rent. So everyone sang the same song, and the rental market was going upwards, really high. It has today tapered down a little, but it has really gone up too high, And what happens when the rental goes up? This is where the investors come in. The market is all-time high now. I've got the best rental at this point in time. So now is the time for me to sell, because they base the sales price on the rent that they receive. So if the higher the rent, higher I can sell the price. I can price my house at a higher price. That's what I meant. All right. So again, this will not cool the market, because now you are trying to push the price up again. So government has to do something, right? So these are all efforts by the government to cool the market. But again, who is the market? We are the market. You and I are the market. If we say no and everyone starts to say no, eventually things will start to taper down. And that's what's happening in the rental market. The tenants have started to say, no, I'm not taking it. And now slowly, but really slowly, the landlords are trying to understand, okay, it's not going to go up anymore. I have to now somehow or other, because the last 2 months has been quite quiet, get the best offer that I have and get going. If not, I would not have anything. I would have to keep my house empty, right? So alternatively, if you look at interest rates going up, naturally the fixed D rates will also go up. So some of them, what they do, they have actually sold their property and they don't know what to do with their money. In the meantime, they are not buying anything yet. They have put it into fixed rates, which is actually giving them some very good 3.75 to some, even I've heard can reach up to 4. This was taken in September, but I think you can check with your individual bank or bankers what these guys are offering. And of course, there are other types of investment like bonds, T-bills, and all these things. So people have alternative investment plans as well. So in summary, if you look at Singapore, right, it's always been attractive, okay, because our corporate tax is one of the lowest. Income tax is also one of the lowest. And everyone wants to have their family here. It's a safe country, asset security, children's medical, so many things. All these things add value to Singapore. Singapore is a brand. So no matter how much of tax you impose on these people, regardless whether they are PRs or foreigners, they will keep coming back to Singapore because they still feel it's one of the safest places to stay. And this is what I've been saying for the last 10 years because I've never seen a point where the market, there are always ups and downs, but never crashed. Because Singapore, like I said, is a brand. You can't let the market crash. The government will not let that happen. Although that's the reason why they are introducing all these cooling measures, so that they can keep it safe. All right. So again, fundamentals. Housing is a need. It's not a want, right? So these are some of the latest articles that I picked up today. Okay, 17th October, 7,000 HDB flats and 3,000 private homes to be built in Bayshore. So if you notice, Bayshore MRT is coming up and all these 10,000 houses are going to come up. So why is the government introducing all these things? Because the more houses are introduced, the more choices people have to buy. And I keep the prices in a certain manner. I control everything, right? So now the resale will take a hit. Everyone wants newer ones, right? So you see they're introducing more. Up to 5,500 new flats. This is October 20, quite recent as well. Tanglin Hall, all right? And this was one of the articles that I saw today, which is very interesting. Is cheaper rent on the cards soon in Singapore because our rents have gone up so high, so high. And it's really a cause for concern because it talks about affordability. And I am always worried because when the landlord, especially an investor landlord, sees the rent high, they would immediately want to sell at a higher price. And if the bank is able to match, then there goes, our price will keep going up again. So these are some of the things that's happening. And I think the government has done well in terms of really introducing the BSD and ABSD this year. But I think it's working out well because from a personal point of view, the market has been pretty quiet, okay? And initially we attributed it to the 7th Month Ghost Festival, but then that's over now. And we are moving towards this December school holidays and everything. So effectively by first quarter next year, it should start picking up again. But actually this is what the government wanted and it's good. It's good for the market as well. So in summary, this most probably is my last slide. So developers are also more cautious on land bidding because these are the people who bid for land and it depends on what price they bid for because construction cost is also up now. Everything is very high, right? So eventually their sales price will also be high. If you go to any of the new launch today, I doubt you can see anything below 2,000 PSF. And that's crazy. And that's crazy because there used to be a time when it was only about in 3 digits, 800, 900, and today nothing less than 2,000, which is crazy, right? And also as per the white paper, the population will still keep on increasing. So the next 5 years, there'll be another round of shortage and government will again do redevelopment and start building more houses. Okay, and again, now you can see after the money laundering case and probe and all these things, money from foreigners will also be channeled to alternative investments because they would be a bit worried now to come into property. They don't want to be in the spotlight. They want to put their money elsewhere, but they will still want to be in Singapore. Maybe you guys can also put up whatever you think in the comment box. We can discuss. All right, I'm about to, I'm actually at the last slide ready. So I hope you guys like what I shared with you. So if you have any questions, I can take the questions now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raama Subramaniyan, for your informative session. We will now have a short Q&A session. And if you have any question, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. At the same time, Zoom masters, may I request you to unmute the person asking the question? If possible, spotlight Mr. Raama Subramaniyan and the person asking the question. Thank you. Ms. Chandrika, you would like to say something? We are unable to hear you.
Maybe you want to stop doing the sharing, Mr. Rama.
Okay, let me see. I'll just put up this one. So just give me a minute. Huh? Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Farila has raised their hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rama. This was a wonderful sharing. Definitely, everybody will be benefited from this, and you have given a so-called from policy and what is the expectation and everything. Just a question.
Yep.
Say generally, like what will happen is we can see the private property is of course is going up. At the same time, you can see housing board also the prices are going up. Nowadays, you can see housing board prices are selling at more than $1 million.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, we can see, I mean, those time in the 80s and 90s is normally is about 50-50. Let's say housing board is 40-50,000, the private property is something 300-400,000.
Okay.
Now is you can see it's almost the equivalent price. So if a person want to go into investment, of course they can go into housing one and private. So which will be the best advice you will give, sir?
So I guess you are asking because we have different categories of buyers. So there are
Okay.
Singaporeans, PRs, and foreigners. The answer for all these three categories will be different. So
Yes,
I
correct. Because Singaporean, of course, because when foreigners and of course PR they can buy in open market, in a local market. Foreigners are out from this. I think they cannot buy. I mean, definitely they cannot buy the housing board.
Yep.
There were locals. Example, if you could see that just now I mentioned, like a lot of people even they get married, still they have a parent property.
Yep.
Okay, but they can just continue to stay in the parent property, or maybe they can go into another property. Technically it become an investment, even though they have an entitlement to purchase from housing board. It is could be investment because they may not be staying there, or they will be staying there just locking the one room to rental, or many things they do. Yes, which will be the best thing to do, sir?
Okay,
Investment.
the government also has put in a lot of other policies in place to deter a lot of other things, which of course I can't cover in this presentation. Some of the things are, of course, after 5 years of having a HDB, you can buy your private property, but you end up paying additional buyer's stamp duty.
Okay.
Let me just give you a little bit of tip here. Okay, if you are one of those younger ones, if you use this method, it would be very, very useful for you. Maybe you can share this with your kids. Okay.
Yeah.
When they buy their first resale flat, okay, there's two names to buy because they're married, husband and wife.
Correct.
But actually, do you know that you can actually buy in one name?
Yeah, just what my children did also.
You make the other person an essential occupier.
Okay, right.
So
Okay.
after 5 years, okay, the owner is just one person. The essential occupier can detach themselves and buy the private property without ABS.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Okay, that's one possibility. If not, all right. We encourage youngsters to buy HDB first as a stepping stone. The second property they buy has to be a private property because it's only through a private property you can expand your property counts. So let's say if someone starts from a private property itself, you can buy this property under different like tenancy in common or joint tenancy. So joint tenancy is 50-50.
Okay.
Right? Tenancy in common is any amount of percentage. It can be 80-20, it can be 70-30, it can be 99-1, which you would have heard a lot of articles about also, okay, because government's going after 99-1 as well. So what happens is, after the 3 years of SSD period is over, they remove that 1%.
Okay, all right.
They call it decoupling. Okay. And then the other person ends up buying one more property without stamp duty. I'm sorry, without additional buyer stamp duty. There'll be stamp duty, but no additional buyer stamp duty. So this is one way for a couple to have two properties. But of course, anything more, if they're still playing in the residential market, they have to end up paying additional buyer stamp duty. So that's the reason why, because everyone now is trying to figure out how I can be an investor, how I can make money, right? I mean, it's good. It's a good thing to do that. So what happens is when they start talking to people like us, Then we end up telling them, okay, if you don't want to pay ABSD, fine, you can buy commercial properties or industrial property. Industrial property is for the business people, they're supposed to do stuff. So if you go and buy something as an investment and get someone to rent it from you and increase the rent, his cost is going to go up. So eventually he's going to sell everything to us at a higher cost. And that's a cost for concern for the government as well. That's the reason why industrial properties became from 99 years to 60 years, and now from 60 years, they're only issuing up 30 years. They rather the business people buy it from them. End up, it's like for the next 30 years, you just pay me like a monthly rent instead of getting an investor to buy it and he's going to rent it out, right? But nonetheless, we can't stop them. Still, people are buying, and that's the reason why industrial property prices have also gone up. And that's why we also have a SSD. You can't sell within the first 3 years.
First 3 years.
Yes. Yeah. But commercial properties in Singapore are extremely expensive right now. Nonetheless, foreigners, because foreigners are hit with a 60% ABSD now, right?
Yes.
So what do you think they'll go for next? Commercial, because there's no ABSD. But the buyer's stamp duty remains.
In addition to this, just additional question.
Yeah.
This in fact is happening. Like my cousin, she registered for the BTO flat and included her daughter as occupant.
Okay.
Because second owner. But the housing board, I'm not sure whether she received the news correctly or maybe information correctly. The second owner got to be locked in for 16 years. Is it true?
Wow, I'm hearing it for the first time actually.
Yeah.
I
see, for example, of course, you're going for the second property. Eventually, she put in the daughter as a second owner. She's only about 21 years old. Later, she want to pass the house to the daughter. That's her intention.
Okay.
But in between, she thought of like what you have mentioned. Put first as an occupant, then after that, maybe later part can buy a private property. But she is single. So that's the reason why she got to include her daughter. I said, for this reason, they have to lock in for 16 years. This is what the information we see.
Okay, I've never heard about the 16 years before, but I understand why they did it that way. Actually, it's a very good thing that you brought up.
Yep.
If I ever meet people in that same scenario, right, I would actually discourage anyone from including their kids inside, because you know why? The reason why they're including the kids is for 2 reasons. It's either one of the 2 reasons or the 2 reasons. Okay, they need their CPF part of towards the purchase, because they don't have enough money. They need the CPF, or the parents have the CPF but they need loan because they don't qualify for loan. So they need the other person to have the loan. So they add these people in. But in your case, you say she's 21, right?
Okay, she's 21. Okay, why she's including to get a BTO flat? Because the parent is a single parent. So she cannot buy a 4-room flat or 5-room flat alone in the BTO market. She want to buy as a loan, she can go for the 1-room or studio. So she want to get a bigger flat, so she want to include the daughter inside as a second owner.
Okay.
So when you want to include a daughter inside, they say the lock-in period is 16 years. Generally it's 5 years, right?
Yeah.
16
so this
years.
is where we go and we basically, I don't want to use this word, we actually beg HDB that we want this. They say, okay, I'll give it to you, but it's on my terms.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've never heard the 16 years before, but yeah, they do extend out things to people, but at their terms.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chandramohan. I think you need to unmute.
Yeah, thanks, Anuj. Mr. Raama, sorry, earlier you mentioned about the bank interest rates that are actually going to be, coming in place from October itself, right, or November.
Okay.
For those people who are actually, enjoying the lower interest rate, when this comes in place, right? So what alternatives they have? Can they switch back to CPF or, something like that? Or what alternatives they have?
The best alternative is you don't have a loan at all, because I don't want to pay interest, right? So if you have money in the bank, okay, look at it this way. Look at it this way. Fixed deposit, 3.75%. Okay. If I leave the money in the bank, depending on which, like a normal account, that interest, you're not getting anything, right? But end up, if you're taking a loan, you're going to pay him like 3.75%. So I rather not even take the loan because I'm losing 3.75% over there, right? So if I have cash, it's good to pay it off, but of course, no one wants to part with their cash, right? So the next best thing you can do is, we usually won't say use your CPF because CPF also accrues interest. Okay, but the funny climate that we are in right now, the interest rates used to be below 2.5. CPF interest rate is 2.5. Huh? So we used to be in a interest rate below 2.5 where we think it's better to take a loan than to use CPF. But today, the interest rates have gone past 2.5 to 3 point something. But for how long? Right? So if I use my CPF now, it's actually a good thing because that's only 2.5. I'm losing lesser. But for how long? What if the interest rate drops? You understand what I mean? So I think one of the best things to do is try and keep your loan amount low right now. So that's why a lot of people are selling now. If they have investment properties, this is the best time for them to sell. They want to keep the money first. Wait for the right opportunity to go in again. In the meantime, use any other alternative investment modes. Yeah, actually, I shouldn't be saying this as a property guy. I should be saying you all must buy, but the right thing to do right now because the prices are very high, right? And I would not touch any new launch, although we are supposed to market, but it's quite a difficult thing to swallow at this kind of PSF right now. There are other better buys actually. So to answer your question, those people who have been enjoying the interest rates, right? If they do not follow up, the interest will spike up to 4 plus because you don't communicate with the bank will like blood. Okay, but you have to talk to them and say, look, I want to get the best rates right now. So the best rate right now is with DBS, if I'm not wrong, at 3.1. Don't quote me because it keeps changing. But yeah, if it's with the same bank, it's called repricing. If you're going to another bank, it's called refinancing. So you need to do some homework on that one and figure out. Or if you have an agent, they can help you as well. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think Anand has a question.
Yeah.
In the
It's on the
chat
group
box.
chat. Yeah. In the chat box. Mr. Anand is asking, I am on a fixed home loan from DBS, which is looked for 5 years, of which 2 years are remaining. From your experience, how do you foresee the home mortgage rates to be in 2025?
Yeah.
And he needs your advice.
Fantastic. He's one of the lucky ones. Okay. He, when DBS came up with a 5-year fixed plan, many of them didn't want to take it. If I remember correctly, it should be 2 point something, Mr. Anand, am I right? You got it at 2 point something, right? Or 2%.
Yeah, that's correct. About 2.4 or 2.5.
Yeah. That was the amount then. And we thought, well, 2.4 was high. How am I going to
Yeah.
myself for 5 years, But God knows, who knows, it'll go up to 4. So Mr. Anand is actually a winner here, So next 2 years is fantastic because I think it'll slowly taper downwards. It is already coming down, okay, but we can't come down too much because the Fed rates are going up. So the government, the local banks are actually taking the blow right now and competing with each other in terms of like 0.1, 0.2% changes. Actually, they're taking a blow, okay, but they can't go below 3. But it will eventually happen, but Fed has to stop first. So when Fed stop, it'll eventually come down. But it will come down. I think you're in a very nice sweet spot. 2 years will be excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raama. That's very heartening to hear.
Yeah, you are the one of the lucky ones. Yeah.
Okay, and we have a comment from Mr. Nataraja Loganathan.
Yep.
He says that I don't think that Singapore is the only country with spike in prices. I see the trend with all developing countries. It is partly due to COVID, where houses were not built at regular rate.
Yep. I do agree with her. It would be good if you can mention what are the countries. I would love to know as well. True enough, but one thing that Singapore has, right, as a brand, which I mentioned towards the end of my presentation, is the foundation. Our foundation is really very strong. That's why I wanted to know what other countries she was referring to as well. They may be also having very good foundation, security, safety, and all these things. That's the reason why our prices are able to withstand different events, different international news, negative news. We are able to withstand all this because of our foundation. So again, what are these countries? Are they prone to wars? Are they safe? And these kind of things also come to play. And another thing is transparency. In Singapore, you can see everything that's available. You can go online and figure out everything. Like what are the prices, transactions, everything's open. But in some countries, it's not like that. It's not easy to find the information like what we have in Singapore. Yeah. So I don't know whether I answered the question, but it'd be good if you can share with me what are the countries. But I do agree with that. There are other countries that has gone up. Actually, China went up too high, and now they are dropped. They have dropped as well. Hong Kong is another one, very similar to Singapore, but Hong Kong has also suffered. You know, they're going through a bad patch right now as well.
Thank you. So we'd like to our audience, is there any other questions? Oh, yes. Okay, he has mentioned Australia, US, and China.
Yeah, I would say Australia is fantastic because a lot of people are going there now. It's slowly becoming a choice place for people to migrate to. A lot of Singaporeans are migrating to Australia as well, especially with their new visa policies and everything. They're attracting people because you must understand Australia is huge, okay, and it's populated on the coastal areas, not in nowhere in the middle. It's all deserts, right? So even then, Australians, they are lacking manpower. They need people. They need skilled people. So all these skilled people, when you see, that's what happened to Singapore, right? We needed skilled people of a particular type of skill, and all these people came into Singapore. They grew Singapore. Singapore grew as a country. Our property market grew. The same thing Australia is actually right now. They need these people. They need population. They need skilled people. These guys go over there. They fill this void. They build townships. They need people to be in places where Australians are not, right? So I think that's what she meant by developing countries. Although Australia is a developed country, but this is also a kind of developing thing for them as well. And this would actually help improve their market as well, because all these people who go there, they increase their rental market. They end up paying rental on a weekly basis, if I'm not wrong, right? So this will eventually impact their property market as well. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Nataraja is asking again, will the war have an impact on the prices of houses in Singapore?
It has to, because you know why? The only thing we have every day to talk about is the news. So negative news is something that people would use to their advantage to say, hey, look, there's a war brewing here. You know, I better not buy now, you know. And there are a lot of people who have been saying, oh, the market will go down, the market will go down, the market gets bad. The market never went down, the market never crashed. So that's why I'm saying the foundation is very strong, but nonetheless, the sentiments on the ground, it's what we talk, what people talk on a day-to-day basis, what is coming out of the newspaper, how often is coming out of the newspaper, what are they reporting. So all these things affect people's mental state at the point in time when they are making a decision, right? So there are people on the other end trying to convince you to buy, but there are also news like this convincing you or suggesting you not to be so, okay, let me give you an analogy, and maybe you'll understand this one in a different manner. COE prices are very high now, right? So
yes,
if I were to buy a very expensive car 10 years ago or 5 years ago, as compared to me buying the car today, I'm most probably paying double, right? And if I am paying double as compared to 10 years ago, now 10 years ago, I owned the same thing, but I decided to buy 10 years later. So today I'm buying at double the price. So my monthly installment every month is much, much higher, right? So why would I want to go into a market when it's so high? I'd rather sell. So that's why right now, a lot of them are trying to let go. Investors I'm talking about. Those for homestay, of course, they're not going to sell. But any investment property now is the best time to sell. Of course, there's no buyers, but right now the property price index is at the peak. It's now flattening out already. So it is going to go down a little. So now is the right time to sell because you got to catch the market. Once it goes down, then you start buying again. I mean, that's how it works. But again, all this is my opinion, and I'm just talking from my experience. So please exercise caution and, of course, talk to your favorite advisors and take those instructions from them.
yes, Mr. Falula.
Yep, sorry. Thank you. All right, just have another question. Because just now you mentioned about the couples buying a flat just used as a one owner, there are others as a essential occupier. Okay, just a hypothetical question. For example, maybe after they bought the flat, they're having it, maybe go through a divorce. Can one person continue to own the flat, let's say in the situation if there are no kids, if there are kids?
Yes, it's possible. Only thing is, most of the real estate agents wouldn't want to take up this because it's a lot of work to do. Okay, and I
mean, if they buy a BTO flat. If they buy a BTO flat.
BTO flat, okay. Yes, it's possible. Although video flags we don't handle, okay. So, but I have heard of stories where, of course, there's a lawyer that's involved here. So their judgment call, whatever that is written on their interim judgment and final judgment, they just follow those things. But to answer your question, yes or no, yes, it's possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Yes.
Mr. Nadraja is asking, in 1998, before the ASEAN crisis, commercial bank interest rate of housing loan was 8%.
Yeah.
Will it happen again?
When I saw that, right, I was so happy that at that point in time, I just started my career in 1998. So I didn't see all those things, so it didn't affect me. But when I joined, it was almost 10 years later, right? And when I joined, it was like almost close to 1, right? So I didn't see this happening, but I've heard from people who were experiencing that at that point. I don't know. We like, again, as a country, we have learned a lot from our experiences. And that's the reason why our government, I may always sound like I'm very supportive of the government. Yes, I am. Okay. Because they always do look at the market as a whole and the policies they come up with, although 1 or 2 that I don't really like, but most of the ABSDs and BSDs, it is to pull the market. And why do they do that? It's because they don't want anything like this when a crisis happens. Okay. They don't want us to fall. We should be resilient towards all these things. But again, when this happened in 1998, okay, again, the 8.8%, I honestly, I can't recall what was the reason, but in today's context, right, we just need to look at the slide that I showed you early on the Fed rates. We just need to strictly follow closely with the Fed rates. And the US have taken up so much of loan, okay, and they have to keep the rates low. And that's what they did all these years. They kept it low because they were in debt, okay? But eventually they realized they have to do something about it, so they had to increase it, okay? And now there's only so much it can go. It has to come back again. If not, it will be very difficult for the US. So as long as they are in a situation that they are in right now, Singapore is safe with regards to interest rates.
Any more questions on the floor? Okay. So in the interest of time, we would not be able to accept any more questions. Thank you very much for all your questions. GOPIO Singapore wish to thank once again Mr. Raama Subramaniyan. This event would not have been possible without the tireless efforts of organizing team and several other individuals. And to deliver the vote of thanks, may I invite member of GOPIO's first Assistant Secretary, Mr. Fariullah. Mr. Fariullah, the Zoom platform is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Anush. On behalf of the President and the Management Committee, it is my great pleasure to extend my gratitude to Mr. Raama for consenting to give this business talk on latest policies and property trends in Singapore, which is bothering everyone in Singapore as well as people who has interest in investment into Singapore. GOPIO Singapore is very active in providing essential and concurrent information to the member and community using the industrial experts like Mr. Raama. As such, today's talk is addressing the current issue which everybody wants to know about this property, which is very essential in Singapore. Mr. Raama, you have provided the information and the best practices to be adopted and best advices to prevent anyone falling into any pitfalls. The slides with graphics are very informative and very comprehensive. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Also wish to express my gratitude to our GOPIO President, Mr. Harikrishnan, the first President, Mr. Chandramohan, for your excellent welcoming speech, and Mr. Anush for hosting this program as the Master of Ceremony. Also wish to express my gratitude to Madam Vasantham for organizing this event and all committee members for your support and Mr. Gurdev in facilitation of this program. To all the wonderful audience, thank you for taking your golden time off to join us at this fruitful moment. We are really cherished by your presence, and as the MC mentioned, this talk series will continue with many more useful talks and thoughts to suit your benefits. With that note, I pleased to conclude my thank you note. Once again, Mr. Rama, thank you very much. And just a phone call last time, you have accepted my invitation and consented. Today it has happened. With that note, over to you, Mr. Anush. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fariullah. I hope all of you have benefited from this session and bringing home some useful knowledge on latest policy and property trends in Singapore. GOPIO Singapore would continue to conduct similar business talks, health and wellness talks, youth activities, and many other events on a regular basis. So please be on the lookout for our next event. I wish to thank the organizing committee for giving me an opportunity to conduct this session as your MC. Thank you very much for joining our session and see you once again. Zoom session will be closed anytime soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Rama.
Thank you.
Thank you for the session, Jeff.